Welcome to this quick tour of the Conditions tab in HURREVAC, and that's where you can go to get some situational awareness about heavy rainfall and flooding hazards associated with hurricanes and other tropical systems. And we know that hurricanes have many different and overlapping hazards. A lot of focus in the HURREVAC program is on the wind and the storm surge, and you'll find information about those aspects of the program in other videos. But what we have in Conditions and what we're focusing on in this video is designed really to complement those and give you some information about what's happening with rainfall and what's happening over land. So the Conditions tab is in the upper left corner of the workspace, just below the logo, in between the Storms and the Resources tab. And before we go down the list and talk about where these come from and what they mean and how you can use them, I'll point out a few things. One is that these are all live or very recent weather data or outlooks from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and so this is not archived. So for context, we're recording this on the afternoon of August 21st, 2025, when we have Hurricane Erin off the eastern seaboard. But when you go to look at these in HURREVAC, you will see different information. And that also means if you go to look at an archived storm that happened in the past, the Conditions tab will only show you what's happening today, and it will not match what was happening at the time of that archived storm. Also, all of this is coming to us from NOAA and NOAA's map services. And so you might see in the future that some of these offerings that we look at may change or evolve as new forecast products get added or adjusted. So to see the very latest about what we have going on in HURREVAC, check out our announcements on hurrevac.com. And finally, we'll note that all these layers are not specific to any particular hurricane or tropical system. So even if there isn't a named storm happening, it is still possible for you to log into HURREVAC and look at these layers, and they may be useful to you at other times of year. But the specific offerings here are designed to help complement an understanding of what is happening with the tropical system and the products coming out from NOAA's National Hurricane Center. So basically, we'll just go through this list from top to bottom and start with radar on the top. And this is going to be a nationwide mosaic across the United States and territories of what is happening with precipitation areas. And the first option, this radio button, is the current static image from really the past several minutes. And the other option below that is an animation of the past hour with several frames. And you'll note that as we're tracking Erin here off the eastern seaboard, that there isn't a whole lot of data or color showing up surrounding that storm because there is a limit to how far out that radar beam can go across coastal areas. So more than 100 or 200 miles offshore, you might not see where there's any visibility of radar data with tropical systems. So this is really going to be more useful when there's something close to shore or making landfall or already on land. So turning these on and off, these are just either going to be radio buttons or check boxes. So to turn off what we just turned on, just click that radio button again. The next folder down is called satellite. And there's two options that are very similar. One is going to be a static current depiction of satellite imagery in the last hour. And as I zoom out on the map, you'll notice that this is a global mosaic of infrared satellite data. So day or night, there is going to be some information. And you can also use it for worldwide tropical cyclone tracking, not just the Atlantic Basin. The other option below current is an animation of the last 6 hours. And it may take a few seconds for all of those frames to load in. And once it's there, you see that that animation has several frames too. Speaking of satellite and radar, one common thing that our users might like to do is to layer the satellite and radar on top of each other. And know that HURREVAC puts layers on the map in the order that you click them. And it might start to cover up the base map below it and the state outlines and the city labels. So what can we do about adjusting the visibility to help you interpret this a little bit better? Well, the first thing I'll do is I'll move over one panel to the Resources tab and turn on the state and county boundaries, which is the very first checkbox in the Resources tab. And that makes the state boundaries more prominent on top of that satellite imagery. So to do some more fine adjustment of the layering and the opacity, we can go into the Quick Layers tool. And this is in the toolbar that's to the left of the tracking map, third from the bottom. And each layer that we turned on has an individual opacity slider. And if I go to this row for the satellite imagery, as I move this opacity slider from left to right, you can see that I can make that more or less prominent. And I could do very much the same thing with the Doppler radar reflectivity and move it up or down. And finally, if for whatever reason I had these state labels turned on first and they were down at the bottom, I would click on a row and highlight it, as I've done here with the state and county labels, then use these arrows in the header of the Quick Layers menu to adjust that particular layer on top of all the others. And from here, I can also turn a layer on or off. So by using those checkboxes there, I've now turned off the satellite and radar images. The next item down is called wave heights, and this is an estimate to within the last hour of the significant wave height in feet in a domain surrounding the United States and territories. So zooming out, you can see that there is some coverage of the Atlantic Basin extending off the coast of the United States. And in the case of Hurricane Erin here, that these darker red values show wave heights estimated to be over 45 feet near the eye of the storm. And this is just a static image with no animation in the past or forecasting out into the future. And also note that the values are spelled out with the legend that's at the bottom of the tracking map. So turning wave heights off by unchecking that item and continuing our journey down and open up the forecast rain. And this is a folder that contains 10 options, and they're spelled out next 6 hours, day 1, day 2, and so forth. So I'll start with next 6 hours to start to explain this. This is a forecast that's updated several times a day by NOAA's Weather Prediction Center. And this is a product that they call QPF, or Quantitative Precipitation Forecast. So the legend at the bottom, this is talking about inches of precipitation that are expected to fall. And the time period is spelled out in the legend too. So this is a 6-hour period beginning Thursday, August 21st. So moving forward, say to day 3, what is that time period talking about? That's the 24-hour period beginning Saturday, August 23rd at 7 p.m. and whatever happens to fall within the 24 hours starting at that time. So this product is going to show some data that's onshore as well as offshore, and an option that's available to you in HURREVAC to really highlight what may be happening in a particular state or a particular area is to use the clipping tool from the map tools on the right side toolbar. It looks like a scissors icon. And with the forecast rain layer turned on, you can choose an overlay layer such as the outline of the United States or a particular state like let's say North Carolina here, and make that selection and click clip, and moving that little window, and you'll see that now the only information that's displayed is within the boundaries of that state. And to reset that clip that you did, just turn the layer off and turn it back on again. Speaking of rainfall, instead of looking forward, we can also look back in time with several options inside the observed rain folder. And we have last 12 hours, last 24 hours, and then last 2, 3, 4, and 5 days. And there's a little bit of difference between these. You'll note that when we start here, say at the last 12 hours, our color table at the bottom goes from 1/100th of an inch in light blue all the way up to 10 plus inches in white. And jumping all the way down to last 5 days, you'll see now the color table at the bottom, instead of ending at 10 inches, now goes up to 20 inches in the white color. So be aware of that distinction. So the last 12 and 24 hours, those layers tend to update hourly, whereas the last 2, 3, 4, 5 days, those will update once a day, first thing in the morning, Eastern time. And sometimes as it's filling in, you will see a region of the country that is grayed out where there's no data yet. But if you check back later, you will likely see where that data will fill in as the information comes in. There is also information on the observed rain layer for the Hawaiian Islands, as well as the areas surrounding Puerto Rico. And now centering the map back over the continental United States and exploring our next folder. This is the excessive rainfall outlook, and we are now back into a product that is looking into the future. This is a very important one. This comes into HURREVAC from NOAA's Weather Prediction Center, and it answers the question, what are the chances my region will be dealing with flash flooding today? So this takes the rainfall history and the local vulnerability into account. So instead of just seeing a number of 2 inches of rain, well, what does that mean for me? This is trying to break down categories of flash flood potential. And there's 6 options here. There's day 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as well as a cumulative day 1 through 3. So let's start with day 1 as an example, and you'll see at this time some green regions across the country, and holding my tooltip over the map, that says marginal, or greater than 5% chance of flash flooding in a region. And continuing on down through days 2, I now see a yellow area over parts of Georgia and South Carolina, talking about a slight risk of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance. So this can be used on the state and national level to highlight potential problem spots. And when there's a multi-day rain event, which can often be the case with a tropical system, now granted, the outlook areas we're seeing on this map are not directly associated with Hurricane Erin, but it goes to show that this is a product that is always available nationwide every single day. And if we were in the situation, like looking at this example from the 2024 season, you do see some of those higher categories coming into play of moderate and high, and those can be very, very problematic days. And so to get a better understanding of the excessive rainfall outlook and what it means and how it can be applied, we encourage you to check out our HURREVAC webinar series, specifically day 3, which talks about storm surge and inland flooding hazard. We have an expert presentation all about this particular topic. And you can also, again, go to the WPC Weather Prediction Center website to see this information as well. And also we have a description of this product in our HURREVAC user guide. But this is excellent situational awareness about where flash flooding trouble spots may be in the next 5 days. So turning that layer off and continuing our way down, now we're looking at a different hazard. We do have offerings in the conditions tab that talk about the wind hazard right now. There's wind gusts and wind speeds, and this is a nationwide estimate of what's happening in the past hour. So this is not direct observations. It is a composite, but it does give you an idea using this color table at the bottom of where those stronger winds are. And so zooming it out, you see that there is some data availability not only for the continental US, but for the Hawaiian Islands, Puerto Rico, as well as Guam and the CNMI area. And coming back into the eastern seaboard a little bit, where we have Hurricane Erin, we go to look at this wind gusts layer, and by definition, that's going to be a higher number. And what does that mean? Our legend at the bottom is talking about wind gusts in miles per hour. And with those yellow colors correspond to the 35 mile per hour gusts. And then red color is gusts above 60 miles per hour and so on. So there's only limited information that you may have above a certain point, but this can complement some of the other wind layers that we have in HURREVAC. Just know that this is not going back in time, and it's also not projecting out into the future. It's just sort of an estimated snapshot of where it's windiest in the past hour. So the next folder down is called Rivers and Tides. So now we're talking about water-based hazards again, but specifically where is the river flooding happening right now, or where is it imminent? And there's a nationwide river flood outlook that's updated daily, as well as a number of river gauges. And you'll see that there's 2 options under river gauges. There's forecast water level and observed water level. And this actually makes a little more sense if we start with observed water level. And all of these dots on the map represent positions of gauges. And the color coding is the condition at that gauge roughly within the last hour. So green shows no flooding, yellow for near flood stage, orange for minor flooding, red for moderate flooding, and purple for major flooding. And those are locally defined. And to find out more information, here in just 1 second, we'll show you where you can go to get a better understanding of what's happening at a particular spot. We do have an option to hide and filter out all of the gauges that are not in flooding stage. And so by clicking this checkbox called Hide No Flooding Gauges, now the only things that are showing up is where the river levels or the creeks are elevated at this time. And moving into this portion of eastern North Carolina, note that I have an orange dot here on the Neuse River east of Goldsboro. And when I hold the pointer over it, I do get a tooltip that tells me the latest stage, as well as a flood stage for comparison. And if I click on it, it opens in a new tab in my browser the NWS river gauge page that is specific to that site. And there's the hydrograph showing me the recent observations as well as the forecast. And as I scroll down, there's a wealth of other information about the records and the local flood impacts. And this is really worth exploring and getting to know what's available in your area. And it's possible for me to come back here at HURREVAC and continue clicking around and interacting with and diagnosing these various points. But I did also want to show you what it means to have the forecast water level turned on. And so I'll uncheck the no flooding gauges and switch the option from observed water level to forecast water level. And instead of circles, these are depicted as squares. And the color coding is the same, purple for major flooding, green for no flooding. But note that the density of the information is a little bit different. So there are some gauges where they're only going to show current conditions and not forecast out into the future. And what we have here as well can be filtered out to only show you on the map the gauges that expect to have some flooding in the next few days. And just like the observed water level, we can also hold the pointer over to see the peak forecast versus the flood stage. And these can also be clicked on to open a new tab that has the specific information. And a lot of these that are highlighted here, these are actually coastal stations that do have some sensitivity to tides. And to learn a little more about that and to also see some of that same information but spelled out in a different way, there's an option here called tide stations. So I'll turn off my forecast water level and click this checkbox for tide stations. Now this doesn't show any data dynamically in HURREVAC, but it does interact in that you can hold the pointer to see the name of the tide station and then click on it. For example, Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel here in Eastern Virginia. And as I do so, that also opens a new tab in my browser. This is the NOAA Tides and Currents page. This has a lot of information about that particular station. Finally, at the very bottom, we have the national forecast chart that comes from the WPC or Weather Prediction Center. And this is a simplified national depiction of where the fronts are, as well as the areas where precipitation is in the day one forecast. So this is a layer you can use as part of your storytelling of not just where there are tropical systems, but where there's other meteorological features across the continental United States that are worth pointing out. Though I have had the track for Hurricane Erin turned on this whole time, even when I turn it off and go back over to my conditions, I can still explore all of these. So remember, it's not necessary to have a hurricane selected in order to explore the layers in the conditions tab. And if these offerings are useful to you, you know that you can check them year round, and that also things may evolve or get added over time. So be sure to check the HURREVAC announcements to see the latest and greatest.